All right. I have beaten Final Fantasy Tactics. This didn't take me nearly as long as I thought it would. People are saying this is like uh, a 40 to 50, 35. Well, I could be at 35 hours, but like a 40 to 50 hour game, just going through the main story and stuff like that. And granted, no, like I even did some grinding and things like that. So So that's crazy that I would beat this game now of all times. Quite shocked by that. There is no other ending. You said that as an evil comment to Orin being burned for what he did. Yeah, man, poor Orin, man. That that is rough times. Or I guess that's the worst of times. I mean, you can't get any worse than that. That was the one you kept saying you got stuck on in the past, right? No, I got stuck on Waygraph. Um, the fight right before he turns into Bellius, where you fight him one on one. I got stuck on that Waygraph, and that I couldn't beat it. I mean, and granted, this time, like I didn't even know there was a Bellius after that. That I would have never beat that. You meant Final Fantasy Tactics? Oh yes, I had not beaten this game prior to today. Let's see. Let's go ahead and bust out some notes that I have here. I don't have too much written down for this one, but overall thoughts. I like Final Fantasy Tactics. I'm really glad that I started with Final Fantasy Tactics before moving on to Advanced and A2 because those games are really fun, but the story is not really all there. This game really does provide a pretty nice story with some solid tactical goodness. So I dig this game a lot. It is definitely one of the stronger tactics games that I have played. It is quite nice. For the story, was it satisfying? I I guess I can say the story was satisfying. I think there are some some things I wish I had more of. I think Delita was important, but he, I wish I wish we helped him ascend the throne or something like that to kind of cap off our relationship. Maybe finally get one one way or another of how they're going to treat each other. Are they going to be friends? Are they going to be enemies? Are they just going to acknowledge that they both exist? I kind of wish there was a little bit more of that. Did it feel complete? I will say it felt complete. Um, I was expecting more Zodiac bosses, but that was just because of how many stones there were. How was the pacing? I think the pacing was pretty good. I mean, there were instances where you need to go to the story mission, but there's like random battle missions in between, and that does hurt the pacing a little bit. But I think the pacing is pretty good. This is a tactics game. Um, I would say I don't go into tactics games for the story. So the fact that the story of Final Fantasy Tactics is actually good is just icing on the cake at this point. I play tactics games for the combat. The combat is always just super fun. Thoughts on the story? I don't really have anything written down for the story. As I've already mentioned, I liked it. I don't think there's anything I would say that I disliked off the top of my head. For the writing, I have the way characters talk is quite fresh despite my difficulty with it. It is tough to understand as well as read, but it's not something you see very often, which is nice. I really like the language of this game. Again, it is quite difficult to read, and it can be difficult to understand quite a bit as well, but it's not something that you see very often. And because of that, it was very fresh for me. And that was probably one of the most enjoyable aspects of it was, just getting to read this type of language that is not really spoken anymore. You know, nobody talks like that anymore. Characters, I don't have anything written for characters, but I don't think there was any characters that I disliked. Even like Alma was all right. Um, a lot of the villains were super cool. Delita was cool. Ramza was cool. I mean, who was there to dislike? I have no idea. I don't know where the music went, by the way. Muriel says, I like Delita. You like that Delita took evil means to bring peace to a land by becoming king and finally making it so commoners are treated properly. I like that as well. Delita actually kind of reminds me of Yuri from Tales of Vesperia, where he's like an anti-hero, where, you know, he's doing things for the right reasons, but he's doing the wrong things to achieve them. And those are always cool characters to see. The only issue is that Yuri was a protagonist, so we got to see a lot more of that, and Delita is more of a like a side character that you get to see a decent chunk, not too much, but a decent chunk. Kylor says they added a lot of the weird way of speaking in the remake. It was there in the PS1 version, but they took it up a notch in the newer version. It was the changes that they did to this game is a very, very weird thing. Between like changing the class names and things like that, I don't really understand why they would do that. I'm not gonna read this as I go through this. Hopefully, I don't have to read anything. Hopefully, it just scrolls by automatically. For gameplay, mechanics, and design, well, maybe I'll just leave it here and then I'll read it after I'm done. I think I have the worst luck with percentages in this game. There was a point where there was a bunch of thieves, and they each had like between a 48 and like a 52% chance of stealing heart, and all three of them stole heart, and then one of those three stole heart again. It was one of the most ridiculous things. And then there were constant times where I'm getting my equipment rent from knights at 44% chance, at 30% chance. There's times where I'm missing at 95% chance. It really brings me back to XCOM, where I felt like I had some XCOM percentages here. Knight's rending abilities are some of the most frustrating abilities out there. Partially because I feel rending enemy weapons doesn't accomplish much, but also because it's incredibly cheap to just have something destroyed like that. Truthfully, the same is to be said about stealing items, though there is value to the player in stealing. I've complained about the rending this entire game. I think it's... I'll just go on the record and say it's a bad mechanic, and there's nothing fun in losing equipment that way, and there's no gain to doing that in combat because, you know, you have like a 40-something% chance. You're never gonna see those enemies again, you know. Or if you do, they're gonna have equipment back, whereas you're spending money, you're spending resources, you're spending time, and you lose those stats immediately for that battle. It's just not a fun mechanic, and I despise it wholeheartedly. Not being able to view the battlefield before deploying units is up there with my least favorite things about this game. This is probably just a sign of the times, perhaps, but that's just a really disappointing thing. I think the Tactics Advanced games fix that, but is probably the worst part about this game is you can't do that. You can't strategize with knowledge of the map, which I think is a very important thing for tactics games, and it makes perfect sense to have access to that knowledge. And I understand that there are some maps where it doesn't make sense, but I think you make that change where you can't see the map on those particular scenarios, or you go through your little cutscenes and then you get into the situation of, okay, now I need to place my units. So there's that. Combat, I really don't have any complaints about the combat, other than and I didn't thoroughly look for this, but I wish the documentation on Brave and Faith were more elaborate, I suppose. And I'll just leave it at that. For dungeons, I'm going to say this, even though I'm going to rebut it as soon as I say it. I'll continue to say this for as long as I play tactics games. More missions, or in the case of basically every tactics game I've ever played, at least one mission should give the player an advantage from the start. Terrain advantage is a great mechanic that would be even better if it wasn't consistently used to make fights more difficult. So, basically what this is saying is, tactics games don't give you the opportunity where, like, the enemies are at the bottom of the mountain and you're at the top of the mountain, and you get to make use of, like, the range issues or the enemy having to climb the mountain. Tactics games don't do that. But Final Fantasy Tactics actually gave me a couple of missions where I got to do that, and I was pleasantly surprised. I wish there were more, obviously, but you gave me those missions, so I just got to give you props, you know? You deserve it. Let me see. No cardinal sins that I can think of. Miscellaneous. I like the music. I like the voice acting that they added in here. I thought that was a really nice touch. The cutscenes were really nice as well. They had a very unique art style to them, so I appreciated that a lot. The graphics, I like the graphics. It is emulator graphics, so it looks like they're, you know, a little upscaled. They're a little bit improved, a little sharper, and things like that. But I like that. Replay value. I'm not sure if I would say there's replay value. I don't think you're going to get another experience. I don't think you're going to be able to play Delita at the end of the game. So I would say there's probably not any replay value. You can probably accomplish everything in the game prior to going to the final mission. Let me see. And I guess if the developer is watching, Final Fantasy Tactics is a fantastic game. And the fact that it got 2 sequels is pretty nice. I think there is a missed opportunity in recreating old school Final Fantasy Tactics again. But at the same time, if we were to just get another Tactics Advanced, that would fill the void for me. I don't think there is enough tactics games out there, so the more the merrier. And yeah, I think that wraps it up for my thoughts on Final Fantasy Tactics. I guess just to reiterate my overall thoughts one more time, fantastic game, like it a lot, and it is definitely one of the most enjoyable tactics games I've ever played, and definitely up there with the best. I'm not sure what's up there with the best at the moment, but this one is with them. We'll have to play more tactics games to create like a tier list or something. But yeah, that's gonna that's it for my thoughts. So end it there. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna read this. I thought I might find you here. Everyone has been looking for you. Oh. Today's your birthday, isn't it? I brought you Ophelia? How could you? You used them and all the others. And someday you'll cast me aside just as you did him. Oh! Oh, man. I can't believe he just did that. I was going to make the joke of, like, oh, you know, you're just going to hand her flowers so you can stab her in the gut. But, you know, then she kind of, like, rushed toward him, and that kind of interrupted my train of thought. And then he did it anyways. Did you get your end in all of this, Ramza? I got this. I feel like you did this to yourself, man. All right. Well, I'm tacking this on to the end of my thoughts video, so now it's the end of my thoughts video. Yeah.